Hey, everybody, and welcome to another installment of Pod Stallions. As usual, I am Brian, and right next to me is Jason.
Hello, everybody.
I'm just trying to fool everybody that we're in the same room. And this month's episode was an interesting conversation. We're going to do kind of like a free-form jazz thing, and that is this madness that we call action figure collecting. Why do we do it? How do we do it? Why does it make us happy? Like I said, we're improvising this whole thing, so there'll be a lot of yes and. Why do you collect action figures, Jason?
Well, yes, and I'm glad you mentioned that, yes and, because yes, and also, I think it goes deeper than just collecting action figures too, because obviously we don't just collect action figures, but it's that's sort of the springboard for stuff. For me, and this will tie in, I think, pretty well. There's a band called Jellyfish that I don't know if you know who they are, if the audience knows. They were from San Francisco, and they made 2 albums of very, classic, just pop music. Like they clearly were eating and drinking Wings and Queen and, ELO and Supertramp and the Beatles and all that stuff. And they made these 2 great albums filled with pop masterpieces, and the second one especially, called Spilt Milk, which is one of my favorite records. And they split up, and one of them, Andy Sturmer, went off to write loads of themes for Cartoon Network stuff, like Teen Titans Go. That's Andy Sturmer.
Okay.
He did that song, and then he worked with a Japanese group called Puffy Yumi, doing a lot of pop, bubblegum pop type stuff. Jason Faulkner and Roger Joseph Manning went off to work with Beck. They tend to work with him in the studio, or they go on tour with him. So they're just one of these bands that, if you really, really dig music, you're a bit of a connoisseur, Jellyfish, and you find out where these guys have been and what they've been doing. And I got to see Roger Joseph Manning live the other night, where he was at the Grammy Museum, and he was playing some of his stuff, but talking about the process and why he loves this stuff so much. And what he talked about over and over again was this, and it reminded me of Rod Serling too, because Serling talks about this, is the bulk of what they do and the work that they get out there, or the things that they work on, stems from them trying to get back to a place of childhood that they loved so much, whether it's the seasons changing like they did when they were kids in a small town, or the simplicity of life, or when a certain toy would be the greatest thing that could happen to you all year, and waiting for it and everything else. And then as they grew up and they would write these things, and there's a lot in Serling's work about trying to get back and recapture the past, or have something like it was before. Because time, the great time is constantly marching on, and whatever. And you can certainly hear it in a lot of Manning's songs, because he's clearly going back. He even said it at one point, like, this bit here in this song I'm about to play reminds me of being in my mother's car, going to the market or something, and this song coming on the radio that I'm kind of ripping off here by doing this one. And it's all about the sense memory of bringing that stuff back for us and making us happy, and bringing happiness. And I think it has something to do with why we go after this stuff and collect this stuff. And for me, and we'll get into more details, but I can go into the room that I have with the stuff that I have, and whereas years ago it might have been a collection of this particular property or this particular character, and that's all I did. It's like one huge mixtape of little bits of every little thing that I love and that I have an affinity for.
Yeah,
and they're all kind of laid out there.
Yeah, but that's one thing I've noticed between you and me is you'll go to Target and buy like a Captain America figure one day, and
Right.
the next day you'll buy a Star Wars figure. Like you don't. I don't think you have a collect 'em all mentality with this stuff. It's like pick and choose little things that amuse you.
Kinda.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kinda. Yeah. With the I wouldn't if it's a Marvel thing that comes out, I would get the 6-inch figures that I want of the movie characters and the odd sort of classic Marvel character too, because it brings me back to the comics that I read as a kid, and actually just picked up a pile of them a couple weeks ago at Golden Apple. I just dug through the bins and I got these comics from like 77 to 79 or 80 that just were instant memory jolts.
That's
looking
fun,
through these things and all the ads and all the
yeah,
it's so great.
I found myself
then,
buying a stack at Free Comic Book Day. I didn't see it coming, but it was just okay. I have to have this Man from Atlantis comic,
There's just something very secure about it. Just being there with your comic and just looking at the ads and the smell of the paper and just taking it all in. And there were some pages where I went to turn them and I knew exactly what was going to be on the next page.
Yeah.
Because we used to study these things back then.
Yeah, that's right.
That all kind of leads me to, I remember seeing Civil War, sitting in the theater thinking, I cannot believe I'm living in a time where I can watch the Vision and Black Panther and Captain America fight on screen. Like, that just was an impossibility. These team up books that we get. There's no way this would ever happen. This movie's ever gonna happen. So
I think I was like that with the first Avengers movie. I couldn't believe I was watching this. Yeah.
Yeah, and so a lot of the current stuff that I grab or that I want to get is more that it's a signpost. It's kind of like, okay, I lived long enough where this movie happened or this thing happened. I'm going to get this. I won't get it if I don't like the movie or if the movie was crap or I'm not as interested or whatever. But there's a bit of a completist there. But I'm a completist in different ways for smaller things, classic things or not. But I mean, you, for example, besides the Mego thing, which everybody knows about, that you're pretty obsessive on the amount of Mego that you have and rack toys. Is it? But what it is it? When I think about you, do if you've got certain bases covered, you don't just go out and try to find rack toys. You're trying to find rack toys that have a licensed property attached to them.
Oh yeah.
So it starts to get more specific.
Yeah, the more exciting to me is the rack toy that's based on the licensed property that got almost no licensing. There is no action figure line, or there's like 7 things ever made about this. Those are the ones that excite me. Electro Woman and Dyna Girl stuff you never see. There's a looking backward with me that kind of haunts me. Like I always seem to miss a toy line or only get one of a figure and never see them again, and I think that drives the bus in my head, in the fact that I'm very revisionist. I don't care what's new. I want to get what's old. And
right.
I can still go to Toys R Us in Canada here, but I mean I haven't been in a year and a half because my kids don't go anymore, and I don't really need anything new.
Right. There's nothing there unless there was like unless there were like a 6-inch, Marvel Legends style line of classic Planet of the Apes.
Well,
but even that you might not even.
Well,
get,
I did pick up the Super 7. I do buy the odd new toy, but Figures Toy Co. Does the Super Friends. I like those, and I did buy all the Super 7 Planet of the Apes, but I'm not going to find those at Toys R Us. They're kind of boutique,
Right.
So, and most of they do pick up some NECA Mego-like characters. For the most part, they gravitate towards the horror characters, which I have no relationship with, so I don't pick those up. But Yeah, like modern action figures. I think some of them are really great. I've heard there's a 3 3/4 inch John Wesley Shipp as the Flash and Linda Carter Wonder Woman out there somewhere or coming soon. Have you heard of these?
I think that because they did a 6-inch TV Flash along with the 6-inch Val Kilmer Batman, and the third one that was supposed to come out was the Wonder Woman, the Linda Carter, which I haven't seen is out yet.
Okay, those are 6 inches.
I ordered the Flash from the Warner Brothers sites because they're nowhere to be found, and it's not a great. It's just a cool thing to sort of have that you go, wow, here's the show, I watched it.
Oh yeah,
I remember it being pretty cool. Here's a figure for it. It doesn't look particularly like, a perfect job on the character. The Kilmer Batman is terrible.
Is it?
It's a really bad. Yeah, it's a really bad figure. But the Linda Carter one, people are already complaining about. But I honestly don't care. I'll just get it. So I'll have Michael Keaton, Adam West Batman, Michael Keaton Batman, Christopher Reeve Superman, and Wonder Woman, Linda Carter Wonder Woman on a shelf.
Yeah.
All together.
Yeah, I would need to own a Linda Carter Wonder Woman figure. If I was in a store, I'd buy that.
That kind of sums it up. That kind of sums it up right there. Like, I would never buy all the Marvel Legends, but the fact that they put out a Spider-Woman Marvel Legends figure, and that instantly is connected to the Spider-Woman cartoon.
Oh wow, yeah.
That I used to watch. I would pick that up.
I wanted to tell you that story about Spider-Woman cartoon because I found it on my Roku box the other day, and I put it on, and it's not a very good show. I don't know if you love it, but
no, I've got it. I got a Region 2 DVD set because it's not available in the U.S.
Growing up, they would advertise it, but my local ABC affiliate wouldn't play it. They would play Woody Woodpecker instead. So you'd get these commercials for it all morning, saying, Spider-Woman and Spider-Man are teaming up, and I would, maybe this week they'll play it, and it would just be Woody Woodpecker. So I think it came out on VHS at one time, and I rented it and ran home. I was so excited. I was probably 15 when I did this, but it was still haunting me. And it's terrible. It's a terrible cartoon.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Yeah, but I am trying to make Amigo of Spider-Woman right now, so I totally get what you're saying.
Oh, well, there you go. There's your inspiration.
Yeah, so
no, it's terrible. I've got again, a lot of these aren't available on Region 1 DVD. So I've got the Fantastic Four cartoon with Herbie, animated series, which is really bad. I think Kirby did some work on it.
Yeah, that must have pained him.
But it's terrible. But I get a twinge of nostalgia that I'm watching this thing. I sat in front of the TV watching, and I've got this Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends on Region 2 DVD because that was a big cartoon for me. It went from Flash Gordon in '79 to Thundar in 1980 to Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends in '81, and those were my cornerstone shows to catch flipping around on Saturday mornings. And so when Toys R Us put out a set of Spider-Man and Iceman and what's her name? Firestar as the little set from the show, even though it didn't have the show logo or any images or anything, I had to get it because it's all part and parcel of, if you walked in that room and went through there, the thing is that you'd get an understanding of what I'm into in addition to the toys. Because most everything in there is related to either music or movies or television things that I love. And it's sort of a library of my brain and all the things that I'm into. I mean, look, there's Magnum PI down there, and there's the motion picture, Star Trek the motion picture figures, and there's, the Battlestar Galactica ones from '78, and there's an X-Files thing, and there's, that. So I see it more like that now, rather than the collector that I used to be, where I had to have all of this one thing or try to find everything of this one character. and be that sort of a collector.
Yeah.
You know? You're like that with Mego and certain rack toys. Like, if you, like, you told me this before, but when you come across a rack toy you've never seen, like the Manimal one or something, you know, it just becomes an obsession. Like, you've got to have this thing. You've got to find it. You got to track it down.
With rack
right?
toys, though, unlike action figures, it almost becomes, as my friend Corey once pointed out, curation. Like, I own it, I photograph it, I record it, and then I don't care if I still own it. And I have got...
And then what do you do with it? Did you put it in the safe deposit box?
I
sell it?
I do sell stuff. Because there's only so much wall space, and the rack toys I've kept, because it got to the point where the place was starting to look like a dime store. The stuff I've kept is the stuff I truly like. Like you said, it's based on properties that you adore. So I have a lot of, Dr. Shrinker and Tarzan and the Super 7 and the Space Sentinels and that Land of the Lost, that kind of stuff. But it's not, I don't have an Annie coloring set anymore. I don't have a Mr. Smith wallet anymore. Like that stuff kind of just went away. My Love Boat.
You just found it, you conquered it, and you're done.
But with the figures, I'm more into certain things. Like everybody, a lot of people would automatically assume that I have everything made by Mego, and it's actually not true. I like superheroes. I like Planet of the Apes. I like Star Trek. I'm very obsessed with some of the foreign items that came out, like the Doctor Who and Space 1999. But I don't own a single figure from Wizard of Oz, the Dukes of Hazzard, Chips, or the Waltons, of course, because I have no nostalgia for them. Like, I never watched a single episode. Well, I actually did watch Dukes and Chips growing up, but that was kind of like, I don't know how to explain this, but I didn't want toys about them then because I was too old, like 10 or 12, you're not, you don't need an action figure of everything you see on television. And that goes the same for now, is I don't really need to own a John and Ponch action figure. I remember seeing them on the shelves as a kid and going, that's for younger kids, Well,
it was more, for me, I wasn't into the show. I wasn't into Lost in Space. So if I ever came, not that there was stuff out when I was a kid, but there was the ones that came out in the mid '90s or late '90s, whatever. Like I wasn't into that. If I was into the Jerry Anderson stuff, but even Space, I was into the puppet shows more than I was into Space 1999.
Really?
So I might have like an Eagle ship, like the Eagle Cruiser or whatever it is, like a little die cast or something, or the gun. But I wouldn't necessarily get the figures and stuff because I just wasn't, I watched it, but I wasn't like into it. Kind of.
You don't have any Barbara Bain merchandise?
Oh. No, I've got actually all her stuff from Mission Impossible. All her toys from Mission Impossible.
That's a shoebox.
So I think that's a good point to make. It's that just because it's in the realm of things that we love, and that's what I love when you talk to people about their collections or what they're into, that it's not all the same thing. Even the people that collect the big stuff like Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever, they sometimes can keep it very specific, like, just the TV series, and I don't collect the Star Trek movies, or just the classic Star Wars stuff, or, just for this one movie, and but it does get a little exhausting at times where you come across some things that, could be in your wheelhouse in any number of ways. Like Star Wars, you and I always talk about how much we love Star Wars from 77 to 79 or 80.
You do no wrong.
Especially when it was, on the Burger Chef posters, where Han is wearing like flares. He's wearing like flared jeans. His boots are not, his jeans are not tucked into his boots. He's kind of wearing flares. there's all this quick. We got to draw something really quick. We need something for next month's thing. This movie's getting so big. Draw some posters.
It's
and I love that
Blue
stuff.
Snaggletooth. He's too tall. He's got those big silver boots on. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff.
I love the stuff that's just a little off model. And,
that brings me to a good point. Is I'm a fan of clunky toys. I would much rather have a AHI Frankenstein than a sideshow Frankenstein. Where do you stand on? I know a lot of people that come into collector forums and they go, well, if it's not hot, everyone just wants Hot Toys quality. So if you can't do that, and it's like, I don't want Hot Toys quality. I don't care. Are you a huge fan of extreme detail?
I admire it, and for example, speaking of Hot Toys, I pre-ordered this thing way back, and I kind of forgot about it, and then it just showed up, and then I thought, oh, do I need this thing? And they did a 12-inch animated Boba Fett from the holiday special.
Oh, wow.
And for me, that is such a part of my childhood and such an odd part of Star Wars, where next to the animated, painted animated Boba Fett 4-inch figure that was made, 10 years ago, that's pretty much it that's ever come out for this weird thing.
But the attraction there is...
The attraction there is not because of Boba Fett. It's about, this is from the animated bit in the holiday special. And so, but if it had been just a regular figure, I would have been just as excited. If it had been a 6-inch figure, I would have been right there for it. It happened to be this Hot Toys thing. The thing about the Hot Toys thing, and I know what you're talking about, I think a lot of times, and I see it a lot on certain pages on Facebook, or people that, we are living in a truly golden age right now, where everything is being made. There's not much left that hasn't been made into action figures or in merchandise. So people are a little spoiled. And I look at some of the Star Wars 6-inch figures, or the new ones that came out for Solo, the Chewie and the Lando, Donald Glover and this Alden Ehrenreich, and the sculpts they're fantastic. This is a $20 figure that the sculpts are great, the paint apps are great, but I know people that will take those home and repaint them to add more shading and add more, and then kind of go, see, this is why their stuff isn't good. It should be like this. Okay, well then what you've just done, that's a $50 or $60 action figure, which is why when they make the 6-inch figure art from Japan, you're paying $40 or $45 for each figure. And if you're willing to do that and you've got that kind of money, by all means. But I'm perfectly and then I would, if I'm not getting the 6-inch regular Hasbro thing, and if they're going to make a figure art of Solo, they just put out images of a Solo 12-inch Hot Toys figure from the new movie that is absolutely stunning. And I don't know if I can go that way, but if they make a figure, that's when I might spend $40 to get that thing. But no, I don't. I think sometimes those are people who don't protest too much, and they kind of, it's never going to be quite.
I think that if you are a fan of extreme detail, and you want your toys to look like statues that can move, Hot Toys has your number. I think the mistake I've read is that everybody wants that quality across the board, and I don't need that in my life. And I'm a collector, and I spent oodles of disposable income on stuff, but that's not my end game. Case in point, like the Mezco, they do these 6-inch action figures called 1/12 scale. And they're really taking a lot of the Mego collectors by storm, because it's similar to Mego, and I've held a couple, I've reviewed a couple for the site and the Mego Museum, and there's no question they're beautiful, but I have no desire to own any of them.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I've seen them, I've held them. They look great. They do amazing work, but I wouldn't go down that road. Now, if they suddenly did, Buckaroo Banzai,
for me it would
something.
be like Logan's Run or
Logan's Run or Phantom of the Paradise or something, I would be all over those, because
I would have no choice but to buckle myself. Yeah,
that would be a sign of like, okay, they're doing this like Diabolic one we keep seeing. There's a Danger Diabolic one that's been shown, I think, at 2 Comic-Cons. Mm-hmm. And I don't know when that's going to come out, but I'm going to jump on that when it happens, because all you have is some of the, cheesier kind of stuff that came out for the animated series in Europe. But that would be a proper Diabolic figure, and I would get that, probably thinking no one else is ever going to do this. Like, this is going to be
my friend.
The way it's like when Toynami did those Thundar figures, Thundar, Ariel, and Ukla, back in like those to me to this day are still some of the greatest licensed toys ever made.
Toynami
they are
did
so
Birdman
perfect
as well, and unfortunately, I think I gave it to my son to play with because I was getting him into the Birdman cartoons, and you don't think
and then I went
destroyed it.
Yeah, it's funny because I went looking for that a couple years ago, and I thought, oh, why didn't I get that when it came out? And then I went looking for it, and it took fortune to get that, complete. But then I just go, okay, I'm done. I got my 3 Thundar. I mean, they're probably not going to do any other characters. They're not going to do the horses. This is what I got, and I've got, physical embodiments of the show that I loved so much that I didn't get toys for back then. And then that just goes back into the whole Biff Bang Pow thing of trying to make things that you would have wanted as a kid but didn't get.
Now, case in point, though, here's a question for you, because this is the one I fiddle with. You've got your Thundar characters. Tomorrow, Funko announces they're going to do 3 3/4 inch Thundar characters. Now, that's more inclined to the Star Wars figures you had as a kid. Would you grab those as well?
I probably would. I probably would just because in the big scope of things, I think Thundar got a coloring book and a board game. That's all that thing ever got.
Somewhere, isn't there?
Maybe a lunch pail. I'd probably grab them, and it's very close in age range and in my life to the Flash Gordon animated series, which is a finite amount of collectibles for that Mattel did for that show.
Do you have them all?
So yeah, I have them all. Yeah, I have them all. I have some custom ones that were done, like custom Metal Man and custom Aura and things like that. I don't have them all carded. I've got all of them, and then I have one or two of the Sears or the Montgomery Ward boxes with the figures inside those. I've got a loose Flash Gordon laser pistol. I've never been able to find it again. I only found it loose. And I've got the green Ming laser pistol in the box, which, again, in 30 years of collecting, I have never been able to find either of those toys anywhere. There's barely images of them on the internet. And then I've got the 2 ships, the inflatable ship and the little shuttle. And that was it. And then there's some coloring books, and there's a paint by numbers, and that's it. But yeah, if somebody put out a new line of, I wanted to dip into the Filmation stuff. If our movie stuff had done well enough, I would have done 6-inch figures, Filmation style for Flash Gordon. I wanted to do them for Star Trek. Like, I'm not a huge Star Trek guy, and we had the license, and we think we still have the license right now, but action figures were somewhere else. Oh man, if somebody did a range of Filmation Star Trek figures.
Yeah, I agree.
I'd be all over.
Yeah, no. So
I'd be all over.
Let's go through that. What is your top 3 action figure lines you've never gotten?
Well, probably number 1, and if are we talking about like 6-inch Marvel Legends
whatever style, whatever format you want. So it's your dream. So Mego style, Star Wars, 3 3/4 inch, 12-inch, whatever you'd like.
Well, I would either 4-inch or 6-inch, because 6-inch you could get more detail, but 4-inch you could then bring more vehicles into it. Top of my head would be Blade Runner.
Okay.
The original Blade Runner. And then I would go even further with the second film as well, to bring more vehicles in, and little scenes, or little his apartment. I mean, I could go crazy with all that stuff. Always wanted something for Buckaroo Banzai. I just think that I mean, and now, even though it's all these years later, I meet more and more people that know that movie. That a cool set of 6-inch figures of all those characters. Or you could do a smaller set of figures with the bus, the tour bus that they were on, or that could fold out and you could have some adventures inside there. That comes to mind immediately. I would, this isn't exactly a property, but it would be, I'd be left on the street if someone did this, like the Beatles, because the only thing you can do is Yellow Submarine. You can only work off of those images. They will not allow any sculpts to be done of how they really looked in real life.
I wonder why that is.
But you could do. I don't know. They put their foot down after like the early '90s. There were some Hamilton, I think, made those kind of lightweight figures.
Those big tall.
And that might have been the last era. They were like applause.
Yeah, those are worth a lot of money now, aren't they?
Yeah. I think that, and then Hallmark did a set of ornaments that looked like them, but that was like 94, 93 or 94. And that's it. And from then on, it could only be Yellow Submarine. But every incarnation you could do of them, whether it's, a set of 4 of them with the album cover, or a set of how they looked in the paperback writer video, or how they looked, at the press launch for Pep. Like, there's so much stuff you could do. I would have them in every iteration that they appeared in. That would be cool. And the Prisoner. I mean, I always think the Prisoner deserves something too. Or the Avengers, if we got proper. But they're only talking about 2 characters in that one, and one character in the other
in
one.
A balloon. Like when my friend Sean
and I
made a limited run of Patrick McGoohan Prisoner dolls, and we actually ended up giving one to Patrick McGoohan, who loved it. And his granddaughter contacted us, said, "I saw what you did. Would you sell me one?" And we just made him a Patrick McGoohan doll for his 80th birthday or something like that. And she wrote back and said, he said, "Of all the things I got this birthday, I think the dolly is my favorite." And I wrote her back and said, "You don't have a photo of him with it," and it was just like radio silence. So, but we were so happy to provide that.
Sean,
my friend Sean is a sculptor. He's worked for companies like Biff Bang Pow and McFarlane Toys and Mego Corp, and he's done a bunch of different things, and he would get into this thing of like we would go back and forth and have our fantasy action figure back and forth, and so we produced the Prisoner, we produced Diabolic for each other, and actually there's only 3 of those out there right now. One is on my desk, one is on Sean's desk, and the third one is on Guillermo del Toro's desk, because he saw it on Sean's desk and went, "I want one of those," and who are we to say no to Guillermo? And so we've done these little fun fantasy projects. So I think about this a lot, and
well, I could see you could do the Butler. You could do a set of him, an 8-inch figure, and the Butler, and you could use one of the bodies from Wizard of Oz.
I think the only option really is to do number 6 and then do Leo McKern, because he was the only really recurring number 2. on the series, and then of course
Right.
you package it with a balloon, a white balloon, which is what I did when I sold The Prisoner.
Yeah. Oh my God! If you ever do that
It was
again, you got to
you know
tell me.
what?
I'll be
We
all over
used to
that.
just do these limited runs, and believe it or not, The Prisoner took forever to sell. And once we were done with it,
Really?
because we only did about 6 or 7 of them, and once we were done with it, we kept getting like, well, "Do you still have those?" And it's like, "No," like we also did The Greatest American Hero back in 2003 as well, and I got a really nice cease and desist from Stephen Cannell, even though we hadn't done, I think, more than 10 of them.
Is that the one that was at the FX show?
No. That was
Okay.
Paul Clark. Paul Clark, Dr. Migo actually negotiated a 1-day license for that.
1-day license. Okay, because I have that.
That was sculpted by. See, the Migo sculpt is really soft. It's actually not very good. I actually used to own the prototype, and Sean sculpted one that looked a lot more like Bill Catt, and then Dr. Migo, Paul Clark, he had hired a guy by the name of Scott Fensterer to sculpt one that I thought was really great as well. I mean, I think I have that one as well, and it's a good likeness of Bill Catt. And
Wow. I can't believe we'll get. I want to get to your list, and then I'm going to say something about stuff that I've wanted. But what would your list of 3 be?
Well, I think I have a list of about 11, but things I think about, and I'm probably a little more obscure than a lot of people, but number 1 I think I would really like is Jerry Anderson's UFO. In Migo format. I mean, I've made them, but I would love to have had those. Like, I would have, a whole line. The characters are so toyetic, and they're wearing such colorful costumes, and they just pop off the package in my head, anyways. And of course, I'm a big fan. The next one I think would be V. I thought was tremendously underserved, and I would love a 3 3/4 inch V action figure line.
Now, wasn't there? Correct me if I'm wrong. But wasn't there some kind of figure line that was made in Spain or something?
No, I actually have one of those. It's a rack toy. It's like
it's a rack toy.
Yeah, I think they're Argentinian. They used to always be for sale in Toy Shop. There was a place called M&J Variety that always
I
said,
remember M&J Variety.
V figure set for sale, and you could, it was a tiny little black and white photo. Well, I have the Mark Singer figure from that line. I'm staring at it right now, and it's a PVC. It's a little figurine more than anything else. It is
M&J Variety
thing. Yeah, a little blast from the past, eh? And
wow,
there really isn't, like, I mean, the LJN was to do a 12-inch line and I think a 5, like similar to the Dune figures, and I've got those on Plaid Stallions. The series bombed, and they didn't make the figures, but they did get that 12-inch doll out there. But I always thought V would have sold a lot, not probably for a long time, but the exposure they had on television would have really worked for kids. It's just they were a little slow in getting it out there.
Why didn't they? You know enough about it. Like, why didn't they? Why did they only do the 12-inch figure?
I think because they just didn't get it out in time. Like the 2 miniseries, which aren't real bankable, and then they based the figures on the TV show, and the TV show was kind of tanking. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not 100% sure. I just don't think the orders came in for the figures, and it's really a shame because it was a phenomenon with kids.
Oh, it was a huge. The ratings were enormous, and I always felt that it sort of shot itself in the foot once it went to series. That people just got kind of, there it is again. But when it was an event, when it was like event television,
it's a bit like the Man from Atlantis. Like, Kenner had planned a toy line, but the first year of it was these TV movies that were doing great in the ratings, and then when it went to series, it tanked. And by the time Toy Fair 1978 or 79 came out, Kenner had actually taken the Man from Atlantis toy line and just tried to sell it as a generic scuba line. They actually were trying to sell the Man from Atlantis submarine. Remember that really unique, the Station? What was that thing called? And they were just trying to sell it as a Scuba Steve type toy line, so that they knew that the show sucked, and they were just trying to get their money out of the tooling. And I guess the third one would be, and this would be like a tie, is I would like action figure lines from either the Monster Squad TV series.
Oh, I saw it coming.
Of course. Or Arc 2. I love Arc 2.
I thought you were going to say Amazing Journey or Fantastic Journey. Or
Fantastic Journey. Well, at least the Arc 2 crew are wearing like a jumpsuit. Like the Fantastic Journey, I wouldn't turn those down, by the way. They're just people in street clothes. There's always discussions I read online, and people are like, "Why hasn't anyone made action figures of Land of the Giants?" And it's like, because they're just 5 people in their street clothes,
and one guy's in a turtleneck.
Yeah,
who cares?
Well, let's forgive him, but they're not the most toyetic people in the world. And Land of the Giants, it's an okay show, but I don't know if it's got that kind of a following that it would get dolls.
Right. Punky Brewster. Really? You want toys from Punky Brewster?
Character. Well, somebody did.
Well, like your wife says, that's somebody's favorite movie, or that's somebody's favorite show.
Yeah, this is someone's favorite toy, yeah.
Smarter words have never been spoken. That's somebody's favorite thing, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But
she usually says that with something awful, by the way. It's not like something middling. It's like something that we're both like, ugh. And she's like, this is someone's favorite song.
Yeah, it makes sense. And with the stuff that, because I'm, to my detriment, I think, in ways, I like a lot of stuff.
Yeah, me
I mean,
too.
I love a good chunk of stuff, but I like a lot of stuff.
Here's oh, sorry.
So if it's like, something that's like a British series that a new edition of the DVD is going to come out with an extra documentary or whatever, I have to get that. And then, is there a companion book that comes out for it? And, I went on this Kenny Everett kick because we were talking about Kenny Everett.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hard to find anything specific, Kenny Everett stuff besides some of the singles that he did and, books like autobiographies and things. But I've got that foam, that big bendy figure that's one of my prized possessions that I've got.
Do you have the Viewmasters, by the way?
I do not have the Viewmasters. I've never been able to find them, but I found there was, just like when Star Wars hit, they made jewelry, because there's that jewelry that was made
for
shows like the Muppets and things. They made a set of jewelry for pins and jewelry for Captain Crimmins, the animated thing in the Kenny Everett show. And in one go, I found like 4 or 5 pieces. I think I sent you a picture of them.
You did.
Where
I remember that.
even in the pendant that is Captain Crimmins and Carla, his female companion, she's
nipples.
Even on that little piece of jewelry, she's at attention, so to speak.
That's the thing that I wanted to point out on those Viewmasters is, like, she's front and center on those things, and it's like, what a time we lived in.
I know
that just got by everybody.
Well, but the fact that she was a character in the show, and kids did watch the show.
I know, but
because they loved him, he was, and the cartoon was very racy and really got away with stuff, and he got away with stuff within the show that some of the stuff the BBC didn't even catch, it took them 3 years to kind of catch the insinuation.
What was the one that was they had a character on there, and I can't remember what it was, but I was just watching the documentary on him, and it took them 3 years to to catch the wanker joke that he was making, and then he just changed it to
something. He had a character. I don't know. Can we say this on this show? Are there kids listening on this show?
There's no kids listening to this show.
Well, there was a character a female character that he played, like a big dumb ditzy movie star that started to talk like this, and it's going to be great. We're going to do this film, and he does this whole thing, and and her name was Cupid Stunt.
Oh, that's right.
And for 3 years, they got past the BBC, and then the BBC said, "Wait a second,
hold on,
hold on a minute. I think what you're saying, okay, we'll change it. We'll change it." And then for the 4th season, he called her Mary Hinge.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
which is another slang term in the UK, and I just love that kind of subversive shit that he did. But anyway, so that's the thing where all of a sudden I'll get on a kick and go, well, what exists out there? What can I actually find? And,
yeah.
You know, I don't really need all this stuff, but I'm just looking at all my stuff, and it's like, you know, Doctor Who, Ash versus Evil Dead, Universal Monsters, Godzilla, Star Wars. You know, when I say Star Wars, I mean the Star Wars that we love and talk about, not the prequels. Nothing against the prequels, just not my bag. And then I've got, a lot of my stuff that I've actually made.
Yeah.
But, you know, a lot of Marvel heroes, a lot of some DC heroes, a lot of the stuff that Biff Van Kyle has made, Blade Runner. You know, to me, it's like a library. It's like if you come into someone's house and you look at their DVD library or their book library, you should be able to tell a lot about the person by the stuff that they're into and that they read. And, you know, and the problem is, you know, we don't just dig toys. We dig, you know, books, and that's why every year at the end of the year we do those shows where what are the best books that we got this year? What are the best? And it's kind of, I wouldn't call it a sickness, but it certainly is. It certainly is. I don't know, a pandemic, maybe. I don't know. Where
a madness,
where you feel the need to get these things and have these things, and I you know, was so high off of Solo, which, yes, I'm going to say it right now in the show. I loved it. Seen it a couple of times. It is wonderful, and it to me is as close to the feeling you got when you left the first movie, A New Hope. That's how close this feels.
Wow, that is
just pure.
You liked it, eh?
Pure joy. Yeah, it's really good, and it got short shrift because of the Lego guys that were going to do it and the way it was mishandled, and I think a lot of people were burnt out by Last Jedi. I know a lot of people that weren't going to see it because of Last Jedi, but I'm trying to spread the word and tell everyone you should see it. But because I went to get a book on it, I found this Star Wars classic newspaper comics by Al Williamson and Archie Goodwin.
Oh, those are awesome.
Do you remember these strips?
Oh, yeah.
And I had to get it.
Those strips.
I had to get it because I'm just suddenly in this mood for Han Solo and Star Wars. And
that's funny.
I'm
you
like,
say
okay,
that. You get into Jags. I do the same thing.
Yeah.
When the Johnny Depp Dark Shadows movie came out, which wasn't really that great, I got really into. I bought a few Dark Shadows items, classic ones, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But that's funny you say that. You do get into these little jags where you're like, I want to explore this. I want to read more books on this. I want to own DVDs of it, and it comes and goes.
It's exactly what happened with Infinity War, and suddenly I'm starting to think about the comics I grew up with, and I'm running around one day and I go into Golden Apple and start digging through these back issues and finding all these 70s comics that I used to read, and it's just joyful to go through this stuff. I mean, at the end of the day, it ends up being more stuff that I've got in my place that I'll eventually have to get rid of, and what am I going to do with it all? But it's just I think there's something to it that, again, we've talked about it a few times, and we've talked about it with women as well. And I don't know if any women listen to the show. I certainly hope we've got female listeners. Because to me, this is all universal stuff. But I don't know why it is that there's this gene that more men than women seem to have of this, completing things or having to.
Oh, I think women have it, but they just have it for different things.
For different things, yes. I'm talking about like, a band comes out or an out. We gotta get the import version with the extra disc of B-sides and the completeness of that stuff. It can drive you crazy, wanting to or discovering that something's out there and then having to track it down. And there's a hunt there, and that's fun.
Yeah.
And I think it keeps us young and excited about things and stuff.
Well, it keeps us looking over the horizon, The hunt is...
Well, do you think you're ever going to reach a point where... I mean, I'm not saying, 20 years from now. I'm just saying, are you reaching a point now where you're starting to look around and think, I've got everything there's nothing, there's not much left for me to come across that I'm going to want to add to my my collection.
I'm there. I'm completely content, and it's kind of lovely, actually. I love it. I mean, I still buy stuff, but for me, and I think starting Plaid Stallions really took me down this road. I like the information. Like I still get excited about catalogs and publications I don't own. I still get excited about information, but the having of a new action figure isn't all that important to me anymore. Like, this year actually has been one of the. I haven't been actively really collecting, but things have fallen in my lap. I found 2 or 3 different things this year that they're grails. They're absolute grails. Like I got the Aquaman versus the Great White Shark, and I got. I got a Mexican Captain America in the box, and very, very exciting things, but it's not the same as it was, when I first started collecting. I was always getting something in the mail. I was getting tons of boxes, and now it's very savoring the moment. I'm very content, and I can honestly tell you that, there are things I need, gaps in my collection, and I've lost them over the last 2-3 years. Like things have either gotten so expensive, or I just, like one time I just plain forgot that there was a piece that I needed, and I remember losing out on a piece for nothing. Like it went for like a couple $100. I was like, shoot, and the only thing that upset me was it went to another collector who I find is kind of a gloating ass. Like, if somebody I liked had gotten it, I would have been like, oh, that's great. But it was like, oh, I went to that guy. Now I feel like bad that it didn't, I didn't go harder for it. And like that's how, like I can't imagine getting upset over things anymore. It's just all about having fun with this stuff. I say it and I mean it. I honestly don't care if I buy another toy this year, because if I do, if in 6 months or a year I find or 6 months or I find something I really, really want, I'll know I really, really want it. Like it'll be something important to me, but I'm not buying for buying's sake. Like I'm going to Mego Meet this weekend, and which is probably when I drop this, it'll be on, and you should go if you're in Ohio. I don't care if I buy anything. Like, my friends are making a custom 8-inch version of the TV character Spectre-Man. You ever seen Spectre-Man?
Spectre-Man? I don't know
He's
if I know who that is.
Kind of a low-grade Ultraman from the 70s. Okay. And it was dubbed by Mel Wells, who put some subversive stuff in there. I really love Spectre-Man. That's probably the thing I'm going to go home with, is a Spectre-Man doll. But, for me, Mego Meet is more about the experience, hanging out with people, that sense of community. I love getting up on a Saturday and being with my wife or some of my friends, going to flea markets or toy shows, and just hanging around with the stuff, scrounging around. Like, that's more fun for me than necessarily getting something. I don't always need to get a prize,
What would you see if you saw it at Mego Meet? Would you have to get?
Oh gosh, I don't even know. Hmm. Well, if it would, like, case in point, if I ran into a Mexican Planet of the Apes figure I didn't have, or a Japanese boxed Planet of the Apes figure, like, I still have some gaps in my Planet of the Apes collection, and
Mm-hmm.
there's a toy line called Astro Apes that are like the
Mm-hmm.
cheap dollar store knockoffs, and I'm missing
Mm-hmm.
one, and it's driving me batty that I'm missing one guy. Um, but I mean, like, again, these are things that somebody once said to me. A record collector I used to hang out with, like in the early '90s, said to me, "If there's no want, there's no fun." So he was
Mm-hmm.
always even though he could get this album, he knew where it was. He would just hold off on it until he really
Mm-hmm.
felt like owning it. And I'm like that. I go in and out. I go in and out. I get really passionate about things, and I kind of chill out. And um, right now, I have no desire, and there's a nice peace to no desire. You know what I mean? Like, I'm happy for others that they get things. I appreciate other people's collections, but yeah, I'm just kind of, I've had a really good run, and it doesn't matter if I'm top dog. I've never been of that impression. Like, I don't have every Mego figure on the card, and probably never will. But it's been a fun ride.
Yeah, it's I'm hitting some of those walls too, where I
Hmm.
unfortunately for me, it's not just the stuff that I'm involved in making that I want to
Hmm.
sort of have on display and say this this kind of came out of partially out of my brain and brought this thing to fruition and whatever. We're also living in this time where, like, more stuff is happening. These Marvel movies are going to continue to happen, and more cool Marvel stuff gets made, and that'll lead to more you know superhero movies or more things that I love, that probably will lead to more merchandise that comes out. There's times like down at Comic-Con, and looks like I'm going again, where I can walk through the entire place and think there's nothing here that I want or that I need. And that's
Yeah,
actually
that's
that's a good feeling, to think about the exclusives and the things that, oh, it'd be really cool if I could get that, and you walk through it and think, there's nothing here that I need or want, that badly. Or
that's a giant turnoff for me. And I think it was a friend of mine once put it. It sometimes feels like scrapbooking. When all these exclusives come out and people need them. And look, if that floats your boat, that's great. But it turns me off, and I think it's just I don't like to be manic like that. I don't know how to
well,
explain it other than that.
it's the mania. I'm not even, I won't even get within 10 feet of the actual mania of it. It's just the things that you go, well, I know that all of this stuff I'll be able to find on eBay or somewhere on the internet, on some site eventually. I don't need to get it here while I'm here. I certainly don't need to wait in line to get it, or ask someone to go, whatever. But if I come across something really cool and obscure, like that Star Wars stationery stuff that came out in '78
Oh
in the
yeah.
UK, which they've remade now. I think I got a pencil case and the pencil sharpener and stuff like that. I would spend some time with and decide if I should get it or not. But just to walk the floor and decide to get things that you don't need, or that are really going to add a lot of weight to my collection or whatever. I keep saying collection, like, yes, this is my collection, and still got a lot of stuff in a closet that's more that are more rare, that aren't out on display in a case. The cases are kind of for the action figures and the 12-inch figures and the odds and sods that go in there, that kind of it's just a library. It's just kind of a thing of things. Because I think when you talk about the fact that you don't have everything Mego, and that
Yeah.
you don't, so that's interesting. It's like, you even within that realm, which you're an authority on, that you don't need to have everything. You're going to get the stuff that interests you, and that's it.
Yeah,
And that's
I can't get excited about certain things Mego did and there's no joy in it. So why have it around? There's quite a bit of that actually. But I think I like most of the popular items. I think the only one, Wizard of Oz is very popular with collectors, but I have no real connection to the movie, so I don't have any of it. It is one of Mego's better lines too, but it just doesn't float the old boat. Most of the stuff has some sort of childhood connection for me. It has to.
And there you go. That goes back to the first thing I was saying, is that there's stuff in my cases that are happened in the past 10 or 15 years or something. But the characters themselves were important to me when I was a kid. So by that logic, it is all part of that same universe of childhood and these things that, and you said something on the show once that was really great. You'd read somewhere, heard somewhere that it takes a lot of work to remember the joy and the good things and to keep those things in your head.
Oh yeah.
About childhood. It takes less work to just go, oh, it was a ripoff. The whole thing was a ripoff, and I hate everybody. And obviously
we're very hardwired to accept negative things because it kept us alive.
Right.
But something happy, it has to almost engrave into your brain, and that's.
Yeah.
I think that's why a lot of us, we look at these properties and we associate them. Like when I see a $6 million Man in the Box, I think Christmas morning,
Right.
Because that was, I remember getting that Steve Austin doll, and it had a massive impact on me. So I can never look at a $6 million Man doll and not smile.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that going on. And case in point, I remember very vividly, I think it was my 5th or 6th birthday, my grandmother just said, go to the toy department and pick out something you want. We're going to leave you here, which, probably wouldn't be done now. And I don't think I can not look at the 70s G.I. Joe Adventure Team artwork, those beautiful paintings, and not be that kid again. Like just staring at all those boxes and just being in this like analysis paralysis mode, where I just don't know what I want. And so when I look at that stuff, I'm transported there, and that's there's a lot of happiness there. So yeah, there's absolutely that factor. And then, properties I like and enjoy as an adult, I often do buy the action figures. Not a lot, because I really the 6-inch Marvel Legends Star Wars Blag, that doesn't really do a lot for me. I can see why people like them, but I don't have any sort of love for that format and scale, so I don't own any of that stuff. But like 3 3/4 inch Mego scale, those things are kind of like, I'll buy things I don't even know why I'm buying them. Like I have the Anchorman characters. Now let's go to the idea of what are things that you absolutely adore as an adult, but you don't need an action figure representation of them. Like, you've seen merch on them and gone, I don't need that.
Ooh, that's a good question. No, that's
I'll give you mine. I'll give you mine to get the ball rolling.
give me yours. Yeah.
I own nothing figural of the Ramones.
Okay.
I think somebody's put out a really nice action figure of Joey Ramone.
Yeah.
And I think someone's actually put out some vinyl of Joey Ramone, and there's a Funko Pop vinyl out there too. And I've just never had any desire to own anything action figure-y of Joey Ramone or the Ramones. I don't know why that is, because I'm staring at Bob and Doug McKenzie right now. But yeah, I don't own any Ramones toys whatsoever.
Wow, something that I love that I wouldn't.
Yeah, but
I don't know. That you may have stumped me because I mean I don't, it's hard to say. I mean, I was just watching, because of the Freddie Mercury movie, the Queen movie with Freddie and everything, I dove back into Mr. Robot, which I had seen like first season and a half, and then I dove back in and watched the rest of it, and I got kind of mildly obsessed with this show because it's a bit of a, messes with your head kind of. And I started thinking, well, do they have a figure of him, or have they made it? Because that to me is you could just do that as a one-off. You wouldn't need the characters from the show. You could do that as just a one-off figure in the hoodie and whatever. And I started thinking, if that exists, that I'd get it. How about this? I can answer it this way. And I don't say this to denigrate anybody's work or these things in general. It's just they do not float my boat, and it's not something that I have an affinity for. If it exists only as a pop vinyl, I'm not gonna get them. If suddenly the cast of Barney Miller were made as pop vinyls, I wouldn't get them.
You wouldn't want a little Levitt?
I wouldn't get them. It's funny you say that, because it's funny we talk about this, because I remember a birthday, and you talk about these sense memories of standing in front of that artwork, and every time you see it, you're right back there. I can say the same thing for Target stores.
Yeah.
Target stores began in Minnesota, and there was a Target store, nearby wherever you lived, and there was one that we used to go to out in White Bear Lake, and they used to have these bakeries inside. When you went in the front of Target, the bakery was to the left, and most people would get their birthday cakes, and if you were good, and maybe you'd get a toy, or maybe a chocolate donut with sprinkles on the way to the car or something. So I always associated it with that. But when I moved out to LA, there was actually a time where there were 4 of us that were living in the same apartment building, all from Minnesota. Like, I had known one guy, but then he knew the other guy, and then that guy knew the 4th guy, and we didn't really know each other back in the Twin Cities, but we became friendly out here, and we sort of had a little mafia going on, because we'd get made fun of being from Minnesota sometimes. And then we found a Target nearby in North Hollywood, and it was a shithole. But like once a month, we would do a Target run, and we would get the car together and get someone's car, and we'd go and fart around at Target and get the stuff that we needed. And people made fun of us even for that, because they thought Target was like Kmart. And oh boy, cut to 5-6 years later, the Hollywood Target opens up, and it's the second biggest in the entire country, like for traffic and everything, and now Target's cool and whatever. But there is something very, very primal about just walking into Target for me. That
no kidding, eh?
It instantly makes me feel like I'm back in Minnesota. The smell of it, I don't know what it is, or the cart, or just it's something that has been around since my childhood, that has now followed me to another state. And it's pretty fascinating. It's an instant sense memory that way.
Taping of this show, we both got interrupted, and actually, I kind of think we should do this with every episode, because it gave me time to pause and reflect. I don't know about you, thinking about collecting.
I just need to. I meditate twice a day, and as meditating as this is, I need to just do like a 15 minutes, probably in the middle of each episode. If we could just, lower the lights, and I can just sit back and do my 15 minutes.
Sure.
And then we can come right back in.
I can get that. I do that as well. I do it in the morning, though. But yeah.
And maybe you people, in your cars, in your homes, well, maybe not in your cars, because you close your eyes and you meditate. So maybe
please
that's
don't
not
meditate
the best
in your
idea.
cars.
Please don't meditate in your cars. Maybe you can join in as well, and we'll enjoy the show more after that. And I think you'll hear a definite difference in the show once we get back into it and we're more sound.
We'll ring the bell every 5 minutes to bring you back to the breathing. And,
very slowly.
Sounds really good. Yeah.
And we'll ease into the topics. So we're back in a way.
And we just want to polish off action figure discussion.
Yeah, you were going to ask me a big whopper of a question.
Like, is there something that you love? And I think we had done it yesterday. But you don't own any action figures of. You don't need to. Like, I think I used the Ramones, but even bigger for me is, and this is not a judgment, but as much as I love Christopher Evans as Captain America, I don't actually own any action figures of his portrayal of Captain America. It just doesn't really. I don't need it. I have a lot of Captain Americas around here, and
Right. You got Red Brown. You don't need Chris Evans.
I wish I had a Red Brown. I'd buy a Hot Toys Red Brown.
I thought you had a Red Brown. Who doesn't have a Red Brown who collects Amigos?
I have the beginnings of Amigo-esque custom, but I've never finished it. And your friend of mine, Steve Ford, hooked me up with a Japanese artist who made me a 12-inch Nicholas Hammond Spider-Man that's to die for.
Yeah, that I saw. That's amazing.
Yeah, but no, I don't own anything that looks like Red Brown. But I was just curious if there's something like a property you love, but you go, I don't need to do a doll of it. Like, yeah, it's a toughie.
I'll tell you what, it's a toughie because two reasons. One, generally speaking, let's say, let's say I love the new Solo movie, which I do.
Yeah.
And the only thing that was going to come out for it were those 1/12 figures of characters or the 12-inch figures. If that was what it was going to be, and suddenly Hasbro said we're not making any of the regular toys,
screw everybody.
Then I would have to get those. It is, I'm happy with the regular toys, and I don't. As tempting as that would be, it's hard to go down the Hot Toys path, and so I probably wouldn't do that. There is something that I've been on the fence about for a long time that's very strange, and it's not exactly an action figure, but it is a replica. It is a toy. And I'm sure you've seen this on Facebook or online somewhere where they have ads that pop up for it. There is a replica of Seinfeld's apartment.
Oh, yeah, I have seen that thing, yeah.
It's like to scale. It looks like it's to scale with action figures if you could put them in there. Maybe a little smaller for figures, I don't know.
Yeah.
But, it's the front room, and it's the the hallway, and it's this room over here, the bathroom, and then it's the kitchen thing, and it's just like a little replica of his apartment where, the bulk of the shows take place.
Mm-hmm.
And I really want to get it.
Oh, really?
And if it was like, I do, because there's no Seinfeld merchandise. There's nothing. I once mooted trying to do action figures for the show, and it went nowhere because nobody wanted to do anything, and NBC didn't have their likeness rights. And but that's pretty cool. And
somebody came out with vinyls of certain Seinfeld characters.
Well, they're those, the ones that the one I know. They look like the Chicken Run.
Yeah, they were neat.
Wallace and Gromit kind of. Yeah.
I was waiting for my son in a video game store, and there was a display of them, and it was like, where is everyone else? Like, there's no Elaine, Jerry, George. It's all like Frank Costanza and Newman, and I didn't quite understand what. And
I haven't seen the others you mentioned, which makes me think it was a likeness thing.
Yeah.
Where they got them to sign over their likenesses, but not George, Jerry, and Elaine. So, if that had been a thing, then maybe I would have done that. But the Seinfeld thing has haunted me. They only made like 1,000 of them or something, and they only have like 300 left. And every time I see it, it keeps going down. And I think, should I just get it and put it somewhere? And then that's, And
it can be your Zen garden. You can plunk the pillows and put Snapple in the fridge. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I don't think I'm going to get it, but it's something that I really want because it's really cool. And there's also some higher-end Bond role-play items, like the golden gun that separates from the cigarette case to the pen that goes in the thing and it becomes the golden gun. That's like a $500 or $600 thing that, So there's definitely stuff out there that I desire, but I'm not going to get.
No, what I was looking for is, do you have I'm good. This doesn't need an action figure, and it's a tough one because.
You're saying. Addicts. Oh, I see. You're saying, is there a property that I would love
that you love
to have action figures.
So, like the opposite of Buckaroo Banzai, where you go, I don't need action figures from that property I love. It doesn't make sense, you know. That's just kind of where I was going with that, you know.
That's a tough one, because most of what I watch or enjoy, I suppose I could, you know, like The Terror on AMC. The Terror, best show I've seen this year.
Yeah.
But I don't think I need action figures of those guys.
Yeah, it's
going
like,
through that hell.
Like Man from U.N.C.L.E. I love Man from U.N.C.L.E. And there are dolls that came out in the 60s that I don't think are particularly all that, like, they're kind of neat, but
yeah, Gilbert
even if somebody came out with Mego style, you know, Napoleon and Ilya, I don't know if I'd like be all that motivated to get them. Like, it doesn't really rock my boat too much. I mean, there's other people that scream and want it, of course, but you know, it's just
that's a tough one.
Thing. Yeah,
I might jump on that. I might jump on that. You know, Barney Miller, WKRP.
Yeah, okay.
You know, I certainly don't need any of it, and it is a goofy thing to, but maybe part of the goofiness would be to have. I had a birthday once when I was a kid, and my cousin, he and I were the two toy collectors. I've told you about him before. He's a couple years older than me and always got stuff before I did. And he's one of those kids that would try to like look through the paper and kind of see what the toy might be as he handed it off to you. And he handed me something, and I only caught the back end of it. I didn't really see how long this box was. And he handed it to me, and he gave me a hint. And he said, his hint was, boom, 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 boom. And I'll never forget it. I looked at him and said, Barney Miller dolls?
Yeah.
Like, and I said it with the, you know, as a 9-year-old thinking, are there Barney Miller dolls? I knew there were Welcome Back Kotter ones, and there were ones for the Waltons. Like, did they do Barney Miller dolls that I didn't know about?
Yeah.
Anyway, it turned out it was a toy guitar.
Oh.
Like the worst hint in the world. But it
wasn't even a toy bass, because that's a bass.
No, it wasn't even a toy bass. It was a toy guitar that I spent the next couple of years standing in front of my record player, jamming out to the Cars and Wings and the Beatles with the guitar. That was kind of like a toy.
You just brought up a funny kid memory where you just assumed there was action figures of everything on television, and you just hadn't seen them.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
Like, I used to think that all the time. Like, I'm going to run into this or that, or you know.
It became we were that generation that everybody, you know, Policewoman or Kojak or Superman or, you know, Love Boat or all these things that just were always out.
Yeah.
You know, they always had merchandise or some kind of stuff, or rack toys too. Loads of toys that never got real toys got rack toys.
The Sweat Hogs was one that I remember really vividly as going, why? And I loved that show, but I didn't see the need to own dolls of them,
like
to act
the
out
figures and stuff.
Yeah, their adventures. As a kid, I remember just thinking that's weird. You
so
know?
what would you? What's a property from our lifetimes, or just in stuff that we love? What's a property that you said one? You said UFO, like a full on UFO.
That's the one I would love the most.
Yeah,
we did our top threes yesterday.
Did you do your 2 and 3?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I'm done. I could add my 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, but you know that's beside the point.
Yeah. I would add as an honorable mention, because I know it's never going to happen, but I would add Rockford, the Rockford Files, Rockford's car. You know, either
what's the scale you want? Do you want like a 3 3/4 like the Magnum PI set, or do you want...
Yeah, that would be perfect. But if I can't get the car, then I want Migos of Rockford and Angel.
Oh yeah,
and maybe Beth Davenport, his lawyer.
I can just picture a whole unsold rack of Stuart Margolin figures on clearance with those big Child World stickers on them. Please take these.
Right?
Yeah.
And then because he was in the new X-Files, we've hung on to him all this time, and now they're worth a fortune.
No.
Now everybody wants the new Stuart Margolin, new old stock of Stuart Margolin. But yeah,
Would you get a Tom Selleck in there too? Because he was like a
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe you cut out the proofs of purchase, and then you get a free Tom Selleck. Lance, he played Lance something in a couple episodes. Get him.
And then you could also get Mariette Hartley, because that was his wife.
Mariette Hartley was.
I was just
Mariette
joking.
Hartley.
She was,
no, but it confused because Mariette Hartley married Bill Bixby in the series in the Hulk.
Yeah, no,
Didn't he marry her?
I think you're right.
But you're talking about the Polaroid commercials.
Polaroid commercials where people just thought they were a couple.
Yes.
Remember that?
Yes. That was a huge campaign.
It was.
Huge, massive campaign that went on forever. And yeah, people thought they were married. But yeah, I'd like to do. I can't believe no one. I don't really see. I think you showed me a picture once of one custom of Rockford, which kills me. I thought he'd be customed to death.
People talk about it a lot, but the problem is that there is an Amigo out there that is easy. Like, it's really easy to make a Daredevil in the Amigo world, because you take a Batman and or you take a Captain America, but there's when you're doing like distinct characters, like there either needs to be a head sculpt out there, or they what often happens in the Amigo customizing community is there's another product, a statue, a 12-inch doll, or something like that, and somebody takes it and shrinks it down and puts a Amigo neck plug on it. But there isn't anything of James Garner. Like, there just isn't, So it's almost impossible to do.
That's true. There's a head on Mark's. I don't know if he's called Johnny West or Johnny Marks or whatever he's supposed to be. Basically,
Johnny
looks
West.
like. He basically looks like James West from the Wild Wild West.
Oh, Robert Conrad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a 12-inch figure, and I suppose someone could try to take that, shrink it down, and adjust it a bit to look like Garner.
Well, what about was there a member exclusive premiere?
Do I ever?
Yeah, they were one of the '90s best. Did they do a Maverick?
They did a.
They did a James West.
They did a James West. They did a. They did a James West. They did a what's his name? Marshall Matt Dillon, and they did something else, but they did not do Maverick.
Oh, okay. Too bad.
Yeah, I think I've got the James West somewhere. But they got it. They had licenses for everything.
So
incredible.
You are standing in my way of making a Man Called Sloan Amigo action figure.
Yes.
Okay.
Because you could find that. It's not a terrible skull. You could find that.
The heads were nice. The bodies and the clothes were just terrible, as I recall.
Yeah. You could make a Man Called Sloan. And who's the guy? You have to make the villain too with the arm.
Actually, he's his sidekick, Torque.
Or sidekick. Sorry, what am I thinking?
Yeah. But then I'd need to make a Robert Conrad and a Roddy McDowell and what's his face there? The actor we like so much that has the burns on his face.
Oh, Richard Lynch.
Richard Lynch, yeah.
Is Roddy McDowell
favorite actor?
Roddy McDowell. He's a. He is. Richard Lynch comes up more than I think he's overtaken Marjo Gordon.
He has. Yeah. Well, you just shoehorn Marjo Gortner in. There's never actually any reference to Marjo Gortner.
Marjo Gordon should be thought of at all times. I'm just saying.
You know what? I keep trying to watch Star Crash and
never turn it off.
He's so terrible. Like I don't know how we got on this, but like it's Carolyn Monroe walking around in skimpy outfits, and I'm like, oh god, I got to turn this off because he's just so bad in it. Ugh.
I was flipping around one night a couple weeks ago, and Earthquake was on. And I don't know the last time you ever saw Earthquake, because I remember it as a kid when I'd see it on television, and it kind of scared me, and it was kind of dark, I thought, because you're seeing it on a little, TV screen. But I was just kind of watching it for a bit, and I thought, Poseidon Adventure's not a terrible movie. It's pretty by the numbers, and but you're not embarrassed by it. Earthquake was one of the worst things I've ever seen. The acting, the comedy in it, the characters, there's a fight scene for no reason in a pool hall, that that George Kennedy's just letting happen because he's so tired of being a cop, and he keeps drinking, and then he starts punching people, and they go through walls and stuff. And then you've got Walter Matthau making a cameo, sitting at the end of the bar in hippie clothes, like a big pimp hat and a pimp wig, getting drunk, not knowing where he is, and kind of like putting his head back on the bar. You know, and then when the action comes, it literally looks like people were standing under the set, you know, swaying, you know, styrofoam bits of wood and things to people just jumping off of balconies, and so bad. It's such a terrible movie, and it was huge. It was this massive movie that people went to.
Yeah, the wife and I were watching the Airport series a while back, and you know, people went to the theater to see these. You know,
oh yeah,
they're so bizarre to watch now. They're kind of fun because they're like Easter eggs. You know, there's Jerry Stiller drunk on the plane. You know, and
right.
Watching how air travel was in the 70s. You know, it's just...
air travel and how human interaction was in the 70s.
Yeah,
how people were talking to each other, the inappropriate things that were said, or the kind of, you know, off-color jokes that they got away with in the early 70s, or, you know, it's kind of fascinating. And even Earthquake has some of that, but it's so, I barely remembered it, and then seeing it again, I was just, wow, this is a terrible, terrible movie.
It's a movie filled with bad people.
We're lucky that we got Jaws to come along, and then Star Wars and everything else that started bringing more fun into. Otherwise, we would have had a decade of, you know, more of those movies. Although they tried doing The Swarm, and that didn't work as well.
No, I remember that bombing. Yeah.
And I only went to see that because of Michael Caine.
Those are all properties I don't need action figures from, by the way.
You tell me another 8 or 9-year-old that you could know of that would go see The Swarm, not for the bees and the destruction, but because Michael Caine was in it.
Yeah, no, I don't. You're an anomaly, sir.
There's something wrong there. There's something wrong that I would be that into Michael Caine back then.
So was teenage you, like, were you at Jaws 4: The Revenge because of Michael Caine? Like that, you must have been the 80s must have been very busy for you.
The 80s was very busy for me because I had to see everything he did.
Yeah.
I don't think I ever saw Jaws: The Revenge, but I did see Mona Lisa in '86, which is a wonderful movie with him and Bob Hoskins. I saw what's the Liberty one? Liberty, Give Me Liberty or something with Alan Alda in it. I saw the one. There's one. There's one with Sigourney Weaver where she's a prostitute and he's.
Good Lord, he's made a lot of movies. What about the one where he's the spy and Pierce Brosnan's the Russian with the nuke?
It's called The Fourth Protocol.
Fourth Protocol. It's got Joanna Cassidy in it. Yeah, I saw that. In the theater.
I saw that. Saw that in the theater. Yeah. He also had another one called The Whistleblower.
Good God.
Where it was about his son. His son was a whistleblower, and he was, you know, trying to get revenge on who did whatever.
Oh.
Yeah, I kept up with all that stuff.
There's not a lot of Michael Caine action figures either.
No, I originally, way back, I had my short list of stuff I wanted to do when Biff Bang Pow just got started. And, you know, when you go back and kind of look at it, it's like, oh, okay, we did some. Big Lebowski, Twilight Zone, Flash Gordon, they were on there. You know, Monty Python, which didn't happen. But I thought of, like, the Caine collection, just like 3 characters of Caine, you know, one from the Ipcris File, one of him from the Italian Job, and one of him from Get Carter.
Get Carter, yeah.
You know, just these 3 totally different looks for him, and just call it the Caine collection, basically. That didn't go over too well. I don't think we got past. I'm not sure we got past design stages or design meeting on that one.
The focus group was your mirror. I agree,
pretty much,
sir. Yeah,
I recommend it highly.
What was your take on? Well, let's talk. Get it back to action figures for a bit. What was your take on the '90s? Remember, action figures became like. First it was trading cards, then it went to comics, and then guys jumped to action figures as the hot thing. And guys were lining up at Toys R Us to get the new waves of stuff. Were you ever into that?
No, I mean it would for me. It's always just been like most of the time a casual trip over to a Toys R Us, or when the toy stores like the KBs used to be in the mall, a casual kind of, you'd go to the mall for something and then go, oh, I'm going to hit the toy store.
Oh yeah,
it was never like that. You better get this or it's gonna. I mean, I remember that whole thing with the 12-inch GI Joe that came out in like '93. That was a Target exclusive
thing. Yeah, that thing went nuts.
That everybody in Toy Shop was convinced was going to go for like $70 each, like a $20 figure, and it was going to go up immediately, and you better get them. And I bought some for a friend that I collected, I traded with in England, and sent him to him, and he probably got much more for him there. But stuff like that would happen, and you'd think this stuff is not gonna.
Yeah.
I think I've always kind of gotten the stuff that I'm into, that I love, and occasionally I'll grab something that's not really my thing, but I like the show that is based on, or whatever. Like, I don't think if I were to watch Supernatural, that show, I don't think I'd want a line of action figures of the guys off the show. Even if I watched it.
I got into it only in one way. Like, I couldn't find good vintage all the time, and you'd buy little treats here and there. The odd Spider-Man figure that they didn't make a character of before, like Doctor Strange, or. But the internet killed that for me, because then I could buy vintage all the time, and I didn't need all this new stuff. But the one I really got into for maybe 1 year, maybe 2 years, was that Star Wars Power of the Force line. I still had my Star Wars interest at the time. I still, loved Star Wars, and I was really buying that. Never paid more than retail for anything, because... Now
you're talking about the Power of the Force. You're talking about the last Kenner...
No, this is that...
Oh, you're talking about... Okay.
The 90s, the 96.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I was really into that for a brief time. And then one of the things that motivated me was my job was to go to different department stores every day and check on the stuff I sold at the time.
Right.
So I was in, 10 to 12 department stores in the Greater Toronto area every day. So you'd pass by the toy section, and if they were opening a box of Star Wars figures, you could get the ones you needed.
Right.
And my friend and I had a beautiful system, too, where, there were scalpers everywhere, but he had a comic book store downtown Toronto, and I would buy all the hard-to-get figures, sell them to him for what I paid, and he would sell them to his customers for what he paid. So, it was a thing he was doing to, become... he'd rather than get $40 for that Slave Leia, he wanted people to know, hey, you can get it for $10 here. Just come in here.
Right.
And it was kind of a cool thing he was doing.
That was cool. That is very cool.
And he did really well with it for a while, because it built loyalty and friends,
Well, I remember when that first image showed up on the internet, I think, of what these figures were going to look like. And I know we all now look at them, and everybody calls them the bulky ones, or the Fit Machine, or the Stairmaster Han, or whatever, because they clearly were trying to make these new 4-inch figures fit in line with a lot of the other stuff that was out at the time.
Yeah.
But I didn't really notice it. I think like everyone else, I just was like, oh my God, they're making new Star Wars toys.
That's all where my head was too. Yeah.
I think I even bought the Millennium Falcon when that.
I never went that far.
Yeah. And I think
I realized that I couldn't afford it all.
Well, I started to kind of slow down after the, like when Slave Leia and some of these other, the Hoth ones started to come out, and then there became so many of them that I definitely slowed it down, and they kind of were everywhere at one point. And then before you know it, the movies happened, and then I definitely went out and got stuff, the morning of the first thing for Phantom Menace. I think I bought some of the figures, and I bought.
Did you really?
Yeah, and I bought a gun, I think, because because and I say that I've said this many times on the show, and I'll stand by it to this day. That trailer, that initial trailer for episode 1, even today, if you put it on, I still say is one of the greatest trailers in the history of moviedom.
Really?
It does exactly what it should do. You're getting hints of things. You're getting a nice montage of things, and you're going, wow. And when that thing ends, it just stopped the world when that trailer hit. Like, everybody just stopped to see this thing. And then the next one hit, and it was good as well. But then you started to see a little bit of Jar Jar and a little bit of the kid.
Yeah.
And then it was like, that my dander was up going, is it going to be? I don't know. Mm-hmm. But, I saw it, and then I saw it again a few days later with a friend who hadn't seen it. And, we liked certain bits of it that we thought were cool. And, again, we were kind of forgiving because we go, well, this is going to be just a building thing. The next one's going to have more, this is just like a getting started. It's kind of a quiet one. The next one will have more, and I didn't end up, just despising episode 1 like people did. I just did. I looked at it from the perspective of, regardless of how badly this is written and acted, there's an attempt to do something a little different, which kind of seems bizarre right now in the midst of the Star Wars stuff that's happening right now. That The Last Jedi, which I have come to despise, I dislike it so much. That people keep one of the arguments of defenses is, oh, it's so different. It's so different. I like it because it's different. It went places you didn't think it was going to go. Well, then you better like the prequels. If you're ready to give all that to Last Jedi, you better go back and dig the prequels. If you're okay with some of the things happening in Last Jedi, like the Mary Poppins, Leia, or things like that, then you logically should be okay with midichlorians, because they're telling you something about the Force you were unaware of, and they're showing you things in this thing that the Force can do that you were unaware of. So you better be okay with all of it. You can't just pick and choose because, it's Leia and it looks cool and she's finally done something.
I mean, we could probably do a 2-hour show on that. I mean, there's more layers to it than just it's different. It's better acted. Like, give me that.
Well, there's telenovelas that are better acted than the prequels. But anyway, what you can't deny with the prequels is that design wise and for whatever it was trying to be different than the first 3 movies. And now I don't like prequels, but I'm getting to a point where I start to feel the same way about The Last Jedi. And I loved Force Awakens because it felt like Star Wars to me. It felt familiar, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's supposed to be a pulpy, adventure thing, serialized adventure sort of thing. And that's exactly what Solo is. It's just I think it's the best thing since Jedi.
What made me quit new Star Wars collecting was when those revamped versions of Star Wars Empire and Jedi came out, and that merchandising push got bigger and bigger and bigger. I think I started collecting that Power of the Force thinking, we're going to get 2-3 waves of this and it'll peter out and I'll have the whole set. And then I started realizing, I think one day I just went, it's never going to end. It's never going to end. And the idea of that, I took them all off the wall of my apartment, and I put them in a box, and I went to a toy show, and demand was still high, and I pretty much, I sold I had a couple of rare Boba Fett's, and, I made a few bucks on those, and all I cared about was breaking even, and I think I walked out of the show up about $40 from, and I had a few I just gave away to Toys for Tots, and I never looked back. I've never bought, unless it's for my son or my daughter, I've never bought a new Star Wars toy for myself.
Here's the thing. I first of all, I just want to say one more time, I get the feeling that when you see Solo, you're going to enjoy it, and it's going to make you feel like...
Yeah, I after you and I were done yesterday, I asked my son, would I dig it? If Jason loves it, you were kind of, cynical about it, and he kind of said, "You just want to see a movie. It's fun."
That's a good. Yeah.
He said it's a fun movie. and I said, well, yeah, that's all I care about, really. So I might give it a shot. I don't, even the guys at Red Letter Media, who everybody thought that was going to just give the film a savage beating, actually didn't. So
for me, it was even a second viewing where after I can just take it in the first time and then watch it a second time, I see how well it all blends together and how smart it was and how great the lead is. Alden Ehrenreich, he's not getting nearly the attention he should for this.
Yeah.
He's terrific in it, and he's given the impossible task where if you go in doing an impression, it's going to show and it's not going to work. But that's not what he did. He finds the ticks and the little essences of Ford and plays them very well, and he grounds it because he's in just about every scene, But that's a good review from your son saying, if you want to see it's a fun movie. Fun is the word I would use for this thing. Yeah. Not like goofy fun, or it's just a fun adventure movie that has a little bit of film noir, and it's got a heist in it, and it's got a little bit of Western, and it just works. You come out of it. My buddy, who did not like Last Jedi, but we went to it, and he turned to me, 20 minutes in, and he said, "Now this is Star Wars." And the next day, he texted me asking if I wanted to go again, and we saw it again Sunday morning because he just and he's not an Uber fan like we are. He just loves Star Wars. Here's a question for you regarding collecting.
Okay.
What's more appealing to you? Something like, forget the actual property. Let's just say this in terms of content or breadth of the collection. Is what's more sexy to you? Something like Monster Squad, where there are a handful of items that were made and produced, and that one day you will have them all, and you've got that case right there, and you're perfectly content because you're maybe missing one puzzle or something, but you've got them all. But really, it ends up being about 12 items altogether.
Yeah. Or
is it something like UFO, where you could have 100 or more pieces for UFO and still be collecting? Which of the two are more make you feel a little warm inside?
Well, I got to be honest with you. I'm going to be all wishy-washy. They both work for me because what I do is with Monster Squad, I want everything ever made because I know I can fit it in my house. With UFO, I have divisions where it's like I don't need every die cast. I don't need every. I don't need every gum card. I don't need. I don't care if I ever buy another UFO piece at all. I've got everything I really like, and so it's this thing where I can look at someone else's UFO collection and they have like every iteration of Skydiver, and I go, that's really cool, but I just needed the one, that's okay,
it's a little more finite with what you feel like you need or how far you want to go with
I just put little gutters, like they do with bowling when you're bowling as a kid, I just put little gutter protectors on the side, and that's what I go for, and I never think of it, there was, I think I have. Like I said, I consider myself a UFO collector. I'm not sure there's anything else I need in the UFO line.
So there's more stuff out there, but you may not need it.
There's
you may not feel like you need to have it.
But once you get for me, it was the Halloween costume and the replica pistol and the Japanese grip ships, and those are the things I really like. And then the rest of it is the lunchbox, things like that. I could probably, in fact. I was looking at it the other day, and there's actually a piece I'm thinking of selling because it's big, and while it was really cool to get, it's like, it doesn't bring me any joy. So
interesting.
Yeah, but I
like the.
What's that?
Well, I was gonna say, there's a romantic notion I have of something like when I think about the Flash Gordon Mattel line.
Yeah.
It's 8 figures or whatever it is, 2 pistols. 2 ships, and you're done, and that's what it is.
But
there's
something then you
really
don't have the mailer
satisfying
boxes,
about,
and you don't have the foreign cards, and
right. Well, you could go there, but you could. It's also nice to step back and say, I've got, I've got it. The other day, in the first part of this, we were talking about things that are sort of beloved that, are off model or
Yeah.
kind of off kilter, but we're just happy that they sort of exist. This is kind of in line with, there was a promotional statue made of Birdman, the Michael Keaton movie.
Oh.
So it's just, it doesn't move, but it's a little statue, like an action figure statue of Birdman, of Keaton. But it was promotional only that went out from the studios or something. And I got a hold of one. And that's very cool, because it's like, that's all this thing is going to be. And then I've got the Ron Eli Doc Savage statue that was sold at movie theaters for the Doc Savage movie in 1974, whatever it is. And I've got that up in my
I
case,
used to
and
have
it looks
one of
nothing
those.
like.
I love that thing.
Yeah,
Do you have the little
and
box for it?
It comes with a little box,
Yeah.
and then the box kind of, the interior kind of folds out,
Like
that
a
you can use it as a
backdrop.
background.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I wish I'd never
yeah,
sold
it's really
that.
cool.
I love that piece.
It's really neat, and it's just like, what is this? This has to be the only, besides the Whitman puzzle and the movie magazine, this has to be the only thing that's come out for Doc Savage.
That's got to be the
And
weirdest tie-in ever, too. Like, where did they
Right?
sell this? No kid would want this. And
I think they sold them in movie theaters.
yeah, I think you're right.
That's what I'd always heard, that they were sold in movie theaters.
When I bought mine off of a video dealer in Toronto, he said, "Yeah, I bought this in a movie theater in London." When I saw the film, and
Oh, there you go. Maybe I heard it from you then.
Yeah.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah,
And it comes in a nice little box, and it's got a great base. It says the Doc Savage logo there, and he's standing on it. He's got his shirt ripped apart, and looks nothing like Ron Eli. But in 1975, that would have been like, wow, there's a Doc Savage statue I brought home. Like, how much could they have made? How many could have sold?
the box is brilliant too because it looks like a Mego box.
Yeah, and it's got little bits of writing, I think, if I remember, near the photos too,
Yeah.
saying who's who, and some different characters that are on there. I love that thing. That's just, it's just kind of a piece, like piece of, what do they call it? Chint, like just sort of, throwaway kind of stuff. But it's really fun. I really like it. It's kind of like my Kenny Everett. Maybe I got it from you. No, I didn't get it from you.
I sold mine to a guy overseas. I remember because it was back in the day of mailing.
Now you got a new Grail to get. You got to find that.
Yeah.
You once told me about you had an ad for what looked like these little mini movie things that came in pens or something, and they did a Flash Gordon the animated series one.
Oh,
so, like,
yeah,
they were little movie viewers or something.
Yeah, if they came out with that, like, it's in a catalog, but it doesn't mean it existed.
It doesn't mean it existed. No. Stuff like that I love, like that kids table that you found in a catalog, the Star Trek animated kids table.
Oh yeah.
I mean, man,
you could fill your house with weird stuff.
Well, weird stuff that you come across one time and go, I didn't know that puppy stickers existed for the Tarzan animated show, or the rack toys for the Phantom, or stuff like that. I just love. I think we both love the digging past the piece and thinking, what was the thought? Especially you with the catalogs, where you can sit down and go, what was the thinking of going after the characters that this company went after, and why? What was going on this year that made them get, for Halloween costumes, made them get The Thing, Doctor Strange, whatever the other one was.
Red Skull.
There's like Red Skull and something, just for 1 year, these amazing characters, and you're going, what was that? And they made bendies of them. Or no, not bendies, bouncing
Jigglers. Yeah.
Jigglers. I love that stuff. Like, I'd love to get one of those Ben Cooper Jigglers of Doctor Strange or The Thing. I'd love to get all those, just because they're so, I don't think there's a huge population of people that are going after those Jigglers, but I think they're pretty cool. It was like the TARDIS tuner. You know, the TARDIS tuner.
The TARDIS tuner, yeah.
Right? That Bill Frost got for me. I'd seen that in the back of that Doctor Who Weekly for years and wondered if I'd ever see it. And then to sort of have it in the box, and it's just as worthless as it, you know, I mean, just as ridiculous as it was back then. It does nothing.
But it says Doctor Who on it.
But it says Doctor Who on it, and it's got Tom Baker on the box, and it's one of only a handful of things that got made for the, you know, for the show at that time, and I just love it. It's like a grail. I just love it.
So, have we learned anything about our collecting at all?
No.
No,
I don't think so. I think we just learned that we're just as odd as everybody out there listening, and why we're into certain things, and what we want, and when we're going to stop, and how it's going to go.
I told you before we started taping again, I hope nobody thinks I'm looking down on anyone's collecting preference or style.
Oh, God, no.
Nobody's wrong. You know, it's all just what makes you happy. And,
that's right.
You know, people think I'm crazy. People think you're crazy. It doesn't matter.
That's right.
You know,
you can, you know, if the Playmates Conehead movie action figures are your grail, then so be it. You've got a grail.
And the world is your oyster.
The whole thing.
I ran into a friend of mine a month ago who goes to toy shows, and he's buying 90s Spawn. And, you know, I was like, every toy show must be a joy for you.
Yeah, they're everywhere.
Because they're everywhere and they're cheap.
Yeah.
What a fun hobby.
Yeah. For me, that would be like going to a show and finding, I mean, can you imagine like going to a show and finding Butch and Sundance, the early years, like a whole table full of stuff? Like those things that you never find, that you'll never come across, you know? I
really wish I liked the Planet of the Apes, the Tim Burton's Planet of the Apes merchandise, because like every antique mall would be my oyster, you know. I'd just be able to find because every antique mall I go to in my area has at least one bit of Tim Burton Planet of the Apes merchandise. It's like it was just shipped there.
That you would think that movie came out in 2001 or so.
It did.
You would think that the toy line came out 10 years earlier.
It's kind of like
the figures
kind of phoned in.
It just, I mean, just no articulation and no just bad choices every which way, and the big ones look like they came out, you know, years earlier, and just could never figure out the rhyme or reason of that.
Even the classic, they did the classic license, and they came out with the Charlton Heston, and I was really excited because I don't think there'd been a lot of Charlton Heston action figures prior to that, and I drove to a Target in Buffalo and picked one up, and I remember going, it's kind of crummy. Like, it wasn't a nice figure. Even that movie bombed so bad that Canada got the exclusive. I guess, you know, whoever was in Hasbro, they did a 12-inch of the girl, and I guess they just didn't release them to the United States. That's what I recall, anyways. So she was only available in Canada, and nobody cared.
Yeah, no, it just
it just didn't matter.
Bad move altogether.
Yeah, nobody was buying those figures at all, and
I think basically, if I get inspired, if I see something that's new, that's sort of inspiring to me. Like, I really love this movie, this new Solo movie. So I'm picking up all the stuff. Like, Disney Store has a little Millennium Falcon, almost like one of those Galoob ships where two little figures go in the cockpit, and you know, and they've got a little set of figures at the Disney Store, and you know, there's little odds and ends and promotional things that have sort of come out, and you know, I'll latch on to that. But then I'll come across, you know, something vintage that I suddenly, it sparks a memory, or that I've got to get this James Bond pistol. It's so cool, from Spain or whatever, you know. I mean, I'm still collecting, there's no doubt, but I try to balance it a lot better now because of, you know, everything else that I want to buy, like, you know, new music or movies or, you know, jumpsuits. I wear a lot of jumpsuits these days. So
you do?
Yeah, it's a new thing for me. Just my Thursday jumpsuit day. Go for the vintage ones. So it starts to add up. You just have to be more selective, more careful. I was getting into these the X-Men animated series because you can't get the entire series on DVD, and I found a couple of DVDs, different volumes that were pretty cheap. And then I suddenly thought, oh, speaking of little things, didn't they used to make these little pocket play sets that were really cool? And then I started looking them up. Yeah, it's like looks like the front of a comic book, and it's kind of like a little book, and you flip it open, and then inside is like a scene with the jet hanger, and there's a little tiny figure of Magneto and a little tiny figure of Cyclops, and and I'm not like a huge X-Men guy or anything, but I thought these were little nifty little toys, and then ran over to eBay and found a set for like $10, and got them, and get a little enjoyment out of these from like 1994 when this thing came out. It just depends. I do like a lot of stuff. That's how this whole conversation started, with that. I think when you go into, if I go over and look at your album shelves or your bookshelves, it would be no different than looking at your toy cases. It kind of tells a story of what you're into.
Into, it's your stuff.
Yeah, totally. But I mean, if you were to come in and everyone was like Star Wars, and it's everywhere, then you go, oh, okay, you dig Star Wars. But if you see like, oh, there's Planet of the Apes. Oh, wait a minute, is that Soylent Green? Oh, where'd you get that? Oh, look at that. The Incredible Shrinking Man and whatever. That tells you more about people, I think. Just like the variety on the bookshelf or the CD shelf or whatever, the stuff that makes up who we are.
It reminds me of that John Waters comment. If you go to someone's house and they don't have any books, don't sleep with them.
Yeah, and I used to have a thing where if I went over and I looked at the CD shelf or the bookshelf and it was just, just I had to get out of there. I usually had to make an excuse.
You were a record snob?
Well, I was that, or they're like, there's a lot of Lilith Fair stuff here. There's a lot of Oriamus and a lot of Lilith Fair and a lot of, folky kind of stuff. I think I got to work early in the morning. Yeah, I'm exaggerating, but I did go right to the shelf.
I love Toriamus.
I would go right to the shelf, for sure. Well, we should do this every now and then. We should just do a more bare bones confessional. Next month we'll handle religion and how we feel about it throughout history. After that it'll be weapons from early man to today, and just give our opinions on everything.
I don't have any opinions on that.
Well, we'll make some shit up like we did this time. Okay. But that was fun. That's fun to just do kind of a freeform thing.
This is almost like a really freeform, non-topical. We got off top. It was great. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, as long as you and I think it was great, God knows what they're going to think. But at least we know it was pretty cool and fun.
It's perfect for me because I'm about to go on a much needed road trip vacation with my friends.
Oh, that's right. You're headed into Migo Meet. I want all the scoops. Get loads of pictures. I want scoops. Text me stuff. If you find cool stuff. We're going to be
live streaming. I think it's going to be. An overwhelming event.
Awesome. And if you happen to come across like a Jim Rockford, or just a James Garner from the Polaroid commercials, or anything like that, you let me know. Any cool customs you think I would dig. That'd be awesome.
If I see any Rockford, I'll let you know, sir.
Okay. I'll be sitting by my phone.
You should be.
All right.
Now I picture you with like your elbows on the table and your hand, your chin in your fists,
just staring at a rotary
phone.
By
the phone.
Yeah. My rotary dial phone, just waiting. And then you'll see someone come in from the side to make a phone call. And go, you can't use the phone. You can't use the phone. No. I'm expecting a call. I'm expecting a call.
The princess phone.
Don't touch the phone. It's hands off the phone. It's waiting for a call. Well, when is he going to call? I don't know. You just need to wait. It could be any time. So
I'll just text you.
All right, awesome. I want all the scoops.
right.
Thanks for being around in part 2 of this.
Yep. Thanks,
All right.
everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
We'll talk to you soon.
Good stuff.
All right.